All right, welcome to this impromptu scenic tweaking video on this 11 by 17 piece done from about 2 years ago. It is done on a piece of, I can't tell if it's glossy or if it's semi-gloss. I have a feeling it's glossy though. I spray sealed it already. Probably with the Krylon UV resistant clear, so you can see these darker areas like this are really kind of glary. I apologize for that. I don't know a way to get around that with my studio lighting on here. But what I'm going to do on this piece, which I often don't do on pieces of this size, is to really go in and kind of address the minutia of this in terms of like really defined lighting in every little nook and cranny. Okay, now doing that over everything is a little bit overkill, but this is kind of the area of focus right in here. Okay, and I wanted to define those areas a little bit more. There's different things that I can do in these rocks, for example, especially with some of the pens that I've got recently with the skin tone colors. I know you think about skin tones, but the skin tones are a real natural looking and blendable kind of collection of I don't know, whatever curated colors that work really well in a natural environment. I loved it for wood, but I think it would be really great on rocks to just kind of define them a little bit more. Hello, Candy. How are you? I was just going to do this piece on just a recording and not live, but I thought, if anyone wants to drop by and check this out for a little bit, you know, they can drop in and check it out and see what's going on with this piece. But I really wanted to finish this piece off a little bit more. I saw it as a finished piece, but I don't know, just one of those things, you know, when you do certain things on another scene, you know, since you've done things that, you know, sometimes you go back and think, that new thing that you're doing now, you know what I mean? It would be good on whatever, you know, piece you've done, so you can kind of go back and tweak them a little bit more. Okay, so this is kind of a warm beige color right here. And since this piece has already been spray sealed, as I mentioned in the description, you're not going to be able to do, you know, your dye-based inks on here anymore, okay, because the dye-based inks just aren't going to be able to penetrate the sealant. So, you know, the alcohol inks are really great for this anyways, and it'd be much faster, I think. So I'm going to start going in here and adding this. Now, the alcohol inks are potentially, I don't know if they could, but it seems like if you just spray sealed, you could potentially go in here, and it depends on how thick the sealant has been applied, but, you know, I guess, you know, you can go in here and potentially dissolve some of that sealant if it's really new. But I think this has been sitting around for a while, so that isn't going to have it. So I don't know if you can tell the difference between like this rock and this rock over here. These ones were really green. I wanted it to look like, you know, either seaweed or algae or something like that is on here. You know, depending on if this is a, you know, salt water or fresh. But okay, so I'm just going in here like that, and I'm adding this extra tone in there. That little bit of orangish kind of tinge in there I think is going to look good. How's it going, Candy? Are you what are you working on? What type of scene are you working on, or are you working on next? Or do you just kind of, do you go into your craft room or desk and sit down and say, what should I do? And boom, you know, you come up with something? Or do you, you know, think about something ahead of time and, okay, you know, tomorrow I'm going to do this, you know? I'm always kind of curious to know of people's kind of working process in terms of, you know, the thought process going into it. Okay, now going in to these little bit of a darker region. See that right there? So that kind of glowing tone right there, doesn't that look richer now? See, this is like a comparable area right here. So here, let me go over this part here. I'll just put a line through it like that. I don't know if you can see that right there. Here, I'll do it too, like that. But let me see if I can show you right here. Okay, so let's go in here. So nothing reads as this color right here because we're doing it over a darker but look at the richness of it now. See, I went over that rock right there too with that tone, but look at that right there. So you can kind of compare it to like this area right here. Now I added it right in this area right here where maybe you don't do it over everything though. See, this is like a duller area, but see how it contrasts against that area really nicely. Let's hit it in some of these deeper shadows, you know, so we can get that rich tone in there. And when you do this type of thing, potentially, you know, it can make these areas kind of just glow a little bit more in terms of your color scheme. Look at this. So this little area right here. I mean, I think it looks okay in terms of lighting, but it's a little bit dull in terms of intensity. So I just want to increase the intensity there a little bit more. So see, that area is a little bit richer now and just has more body. Let's do that a little bit more in these shadow areas up here. I don't want to do it over everything. I mean, you could, but I just want to see kind of what it looks like in those darker areas. And then if I like it, then I kind of go into the lighter area a little bit more. See, this right here looks a little bit kind of anemic, you know. But sometimes, like I said, you play contrasts against one another. You can do darker next to light, brighter next to dull. Not in terms of like interest, but just in terms of intensities. But see, this is like a little glowing area of light right here. And let's make this whole area around it a little bit deeper in saturation and richness. Like that. Let's go up here too. Okay. These areas in here are really quite kind of flat. So now I'm adding quite a big slathering just to make those areas a little bit richer again in the shadows like that. See these very low contrast trees kind of, they separate themselves a little bit more, not a lot more because there's not a lot of contrast in there, but against those areas. Okay. And we'll do the same for these rocks up here. I think the rocks kind of are taking on a little bit more of a natural tone too. Before they were a little bit, we're increasing the depth of them, but also the temperature of them. They're a little bit warmer now. You know, green can be kind of a neutral color. If you add blues to it, it becomes a cool green. And then if you add yellow to it, a little bit warmer. But adding this little bit of tinge of it, it just makes it look that much warmer. And they weren't super warm to begin with, but so if you add just a little bit more, you might double it, you know, so it doesn't make it like hot looking rocks or anything like that, but you've doubled, you know, the temperature, the visual temperature of them a little bit. Okay, like these rocks in the background. Normally I don't address things like in the distance quite the same as I do in the foreground like that because it's so far away. You wouldn't have the same kind of look on them. They'd look a little bit more kind of faded out, but I think adding that in there just, I don't know, it just looks better. So sometimes these are like the little tweaks that I just don't do if, something's, a scene's already taken like 2 hours, 3 hours to do or something, or however long I spent on it. But I don't know. On these 11 by 17s, I think it's fun to go back in and really kind of model the forms a little bit more. Yeah, everything's looking a little bit better. My illuminated areas are just, you know what I mean? They're just glowing a little bit more. They're warmer. They're just, I don't know. They're more. They're more rounded and inviting, I think, like that too. Helping out, huh, Candy? This is one of those few times too, 11 by 17s when you can use like the chisel tip, of a marker, which I hardly ever do. It's always the brush side, but that really helped out. Okay, so here's let's go with this pink-ish color. Let's try this one out. Since these pinks are in here anyway, I tell you what. Let's go with a little bit, or quite a bit lighter. Okay. Because I'm going into, a new area here, so I want to go with a fairly light version of it at first. Okay, let's try it up here in the sky. Okay. Let's see. Here, I'll do it over here, kind of in a, smaller, or kind of a less focused area. The focus of attention's mostly over here, but let's go in here a little bit. I won't do the fill in the whole thing, but I'll just kind of leave it a little bit streakier because, this pinkish tone here in the sky is added in streaks anyways. So I don't know if that changed it too much, but that's kind of good because I can always go brighter and a little bit darker. I can see it on there. It's very, very subtle though. But I always thought my water in here could use a little bit more, I don't know, just something. And maybe this is going to provide it. Let's go here and over some of the blues as well. I just wanted to increase the, I don't know, the intensity or something like that. I don't know if I was, I've been always using multimedia, but I don't know, I don't know, with the use of things like the metallic cardstocks and things like that, the printable vinyls, I've just been going a little bit more, I don't know, whatever, crazy with the multimedia. The colored pencils have really added a lot. Hello, Ginger. Is the spray seal a fixative or a final spray? Final spray. So on this one here, if it was if I wanted to add colored pencils, I could probably add a fixative over the top of it, where it's a little bit more porous and textured. Not really porous, but textured. And you might be able to use it in here, but I don't think I really need the colored pencil with the with all the alcohol pens in this one. And plus, I mean, the time to do that was really before. There's a pretty thick layer of fixative on this piece right here, and I'm going to hit it again after this with more sealant because the texturing from the alcohol pens and the surface of this is going to be a little bit different looking. You get that kind of real shiny kind of, it's almost encaustic looking, you know, like a waxy type of buildup of your alcohol inks on here. But that'll all kind of unify with the use of a sealant. So, okay, so I'm adding more of this. Let's add it more in the, this pink is getting added. I'm going to add it more in the shadows. But yeah, just having kind of a little streak. So I'm going down here like this, and then I'm doing this a little bit offset like this. So these two are kind of going like this. They're not like running into each other too much. So I can get that little bit of a space in between. I mean, it's not real obvious or anything like that, but I want things really just real streaky like that. So I don't know if you can see right up here. So that there's a little bit of that brighter intensity right through here and right through the back and there with this pink. And I think that's more interesting looking. Then I brought this into here and see this whole area of violet. I kind of used this over that whole range just to kind of blend into that area a little bit more. Let's do that over here too. The shadows could use a little bit more of this kind of a merging of that blue and pink, I think. Like that. Let's put a little bit of streak in here like this. Okay, I don't know if you can see that there. But that area right there was a little bit dull. I guess I could use a little bit more here. Because the eye is going to get funneled up into this area right here. So I think when someone looks at this, they're going to look at like that first, okay? I mean, they're not going to look down here or something like that. There's not a lot going on. But they'll first look up there, and then they go up here like that. So that's kind of everything's funneling up there visually into that destination spot. So you want that to be somewhat a little bit more interesting. By the way, it looks like that without that glare on there. So you don't want this area up in here to be too kind of anticlimactic. So they're going to go up here, and then I think they're going to come back around here and then go through out here. You know, that's kind of the visual path, you know, of the, you know, someone looking at this piece, you know, for the first time or whenever they look at it. So, you know, you want to kind of keep that going, you know, if you can kind of keep things kind of going around like that. So it's like this, and like that, you know, this kind of motion. All right, so see these pools down here? No, there's a decent amount of brightness in there with that that kind of aqua turquoise look, but hey, I want those ones to really kind of look kind of magical, you know, like these little hidden pools of water, you know. Someplace, you know, someone fishing might want to drop their line, you know what I mean? I want it to look like kind of magical, so let's layer those a little bit more. This is a super light blue, so this one won't do too much, but let's build it up a little bit more. It's funny, you know, as I do this, it's like the intensity is increasing, but it's doing it like in a, I don't know, like 1 or 2% percentage points. You know, with maybe each color or something like that. I mean, I can go like much brighter and darker, but the thing is, it's not going to blend in as easy as building it up from kind of a lower, smaller amount. Those hummingbirds, they're thirsty, hungry. They sure go through a lot. I think when you posted that, did you post that in the live stream or was that on Facebook the other day? But it reminded me because I had a hummingbird feeder, and I don't think I have it anymore, but at my last residence, my neighbor bought it for me when I moved in, like in a little, you know, housewarming present or something like that. But he was saying that wherever he travels to, he sets up a hummingbird feeder, like even on little short trips or something like that. And he says no matter where he is, they find it. But yeah, I remember them going through quite a bit. And I remember quite a few, like a little hummingbird, territorial fights going on. All right, so those are a couple different blues in there. But see, these pools are kind of glowing a little bit more. It's always trying to give the illusion of light coming from within a card is always fun. So the richer you can make your color blends and transitions will define, help to define that whatever inner glow or whatever in your pieces. Okay, this one's quite a bit of a darker blue right here, so it's really standing out like that. Maybe not on camera here, but let me try to show you this right here. Okay, so see right up here, it's a little bit lighter down here and a little bit darker up here, so let's push that more. Okay, like that. Now that doesn't blend in that well, so I'm going to go in with a lighter one again and use it like a blender and move that little bit of slathering of this tone around a little bit more. Okay, so see right there, there's a stronger transition from dark to light down that way. I mean, it's not always from top to bottom or something. That's just how it was kind of already. So I'm just kind of going with that. Same thing down here. Let's go in here. Okay, now see all these little rocks in here too? Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of shadow to these, and I'll just do it right at the base of them. So now they're kind of a little bit more interactive with the lighting, okay? If you have objects casting a shadow, you really kind of put the object in the setting much more distinctly, like that. So that's one of those things that kind of stood out to me that I could do. So, okay, so instead of just that rock, okay, so you can see these ones in here don't have that shadow, but I'm going to switch over because those ones are kind of in that pinkish area. So maybe I'll switch over to like a violet, nothing too purplish, but let's try one of these right here. This one's might be too violet, yeah. This one's a little bit more, well, I don't know, I don't have the perfect one for this, but I'll just blend it. Okay, but see this right here? I'll come in here and we'll cast a shadow with the, the rocks in the violet area with a violet ish hue. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be real dark. What you do is you go like one step darker than what it exists, what color already exists down there. And then you can just keep building it up. So, like this. Fisherman right here, too. I'm going to, the shadow is already inherently in the design, but I'll just go in and emphasize that shadow with a little bit more color like that. So I don't know if you can see that there's a little bit more of this violet tinge to that shadow down there. But, like I said, I'm going to blend this all out a little bit more too. Use this violet here in these rocks at the base. Some of these rocks are under the water. Let's add some of these violet tinges in these shadows in here too, just to give these rocks a little bit more continuity. It just looks like it looks like a kind of a cool gray or something like that in here. See that right there? By doing that, what we're doing is we're giving these rocks a little bit of more of a connective kind of relationship with the colors over here. It doesn't, that violet over the top of these greens and brownish tones don't look like the purple up here, but it's the same hue used in those areas like that. So, oh, it said on Facebook I was live, Bonnie? Awesome. Great to have you. Hello, Harold Hodgkins. Or Linda. Or both. Hello in Maine. Maybe there's some Maine lobster kind of in this environment right here. Okay, I like this tone right here. Can you see that little shadow in there that's being created by this? See, there's none right there, here. So you just kind of put it like, I don't know, like just at the base of the rock or something like that. Yeah, it looks much better, I think. Every area on these scenes, it's not planned. I'm just kind of winging it. But this is how you do it. You just do it with lighter tones, and you can bring these things in these areas. Introduce it in the area if you like it, then add it in a subtle, way that's not going to, appear too distinctly if you're ever uncertain about it. And then if you like it, then, you can just keep adding it. But remember, it's going to stick out more in an area that would be lighter. It'll look like that, right? But if you're adding it over certain little areas, you can always test it out and see if you like it. Now, if you're working on if we're working on a 2x2 inch piece, and we want to test something out, then it's going to be much more prominent. But you can still do very small marks on things, and as a little bit of a test application. Okay. Candy has 7 feeders. Oh my god. 8 cups this morning. You might have to go get like a get one of those gigantic rain catching, barrels. And just make that whole thing, do your, your formula or whatever for the, the nectar or whatever, and just make that whole thing into your hummingbird nectar reservoir. Or make that into your feeder. Have all these have like a gigantic barrel with like 20 of these little, kind of feeder things coming from it. All right, let's keep this up right here. Do you see this? Because that's the violet right there, okay? So you can see the difference right over here between these ones and these ones. Now, I don't know if I'm going to leave it like that. I'll probably go over it with some other tone, but all these transparent tones like this, it's just giving it much more of a three-dimensional look, to these rocks, I think, by kind of increasing the shadow a little bit more. Thunder just shook the house. Wow. That is cool. 102. Wow. I do like those summertime storms, though. No, not if they're doing, like, damage, or something like that. But it's kind of cool to see it, or hear it. This area called the Mojave National Preserve, which is in California in the high deserts. I don't know if that's what caused it, but big, huge fire going on out there in an area that I really like to go to and camp and hike and do a lot of that back mostly around 20 years ago. But there's been like 3 major fires out there, and I was wondering if it was kind of like some lightning strike out there or something like that with some monsoonal flow that did it. But it just started like about a week ago, I think. But tons of Joshua trees going up in flames. It's just really unfortunate. Okay, so if you just joined in, I'm adding this kind of this violet tinge here. I added it to the shadows, you know, kind of making some of those shadows a little bit deeper and brighter. But then I'm kind of adding this in, well, not kind of, I am adding this into my rocks in the shadow areas of the rocks. So I'm not coloring the whole rock. For the most part, it's probably like on the lower, I don't know, 20% of the rock, you know. So if it's a really small rock, it's, I'm applying it accordingly. It might be just like a little, swatch like that. Like if this was a rock right here, okay, I might be going like this. Okay, so it just looks, a little bit more rounded. And this is violet, but, the alcohol inks are transparent, so whatever you're adding them over the top of, those colors underneath are influencing what that color looks like. So I don't really have this blue violet toned rocks or anything like that. It just looks like a little bit more of a cool gray shadow area within the rock or whatever at the base of the rock. But it gives me something, another color. I'm just doing it in that color to give me something relating to, the other color scheme in the, or dominant color scheme in the piece. So, okay, let's see. I don't think I need to blend it out too much. Well, let's go back in with, maybe this blue right here. I mean, we could do just about anything. I'll use the blue, though, in the water areas right here. So this is a really light blue, so I'm just kind of blending that little shadow area, on all these little tiny rocks out a little bit, just so it's a little bit more diffused and not such a sharp, alcohol line in there. Just going to go over it a few times, and it kind of dissolves that ink that you've just applied, and then just kind of spreads it out a little bit. But, the main area that you added it in is still, where it is, where it remains for the most part. So I'm not blending the whole area. Okay, so if I apply like some alcohol ink like that in an area, what I'm doing with the lighter pen is I'm going like in the lower 25% or something like that, and I start blending that out, and then it puts that back into solution, and then I'm just kind of blending it out this way or like this way. Okay, you can do that with a blender pen too. I always just think that if you're blending a certain color over color, okay, then why not just use that same hue, so that you're adding color in there. You're not just going in with a like clear blender fluid, you know what I mean, which doesn't add anything. You know what I mean? You might as well be adding something in there. Now I mean, if you're using a blender pen over something that's colored and it's white around there, then yeah, use the clear blender pen. But I just think you might as well be adding something in there over colored areas, just while you're at it, because you're not just like removing something. You might as well be doing like an additive type of process to your piece. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's not killing two birds with one stone, but I don't know. There's no wasted kind of efforts in there. Okay, so let's do this right here. I always like this color right here. This is a brownish gray. This is one of my favorite colors right here. And I'm going to blend in some of that violet a little bit too into these rocks where that violet tinge was added at the base of the rocks. Okay, so hopefully you can see that right here, that little violet tinge right there. So you just go in here like this and you just kind of blend that in a little bit more like that. It's just one, I don't, you know, it's one of those really subtle things. You know, I don't need to do that really distinctly anywhere. I don't need like perfect blends in here. But I do want reasonable blends. It's just in the event someone gets, you know what I mean? Someone is looking at like a 1-inch square area, which, you know, if they do that, then, yeah, I don't know, you've prepared it. You're prepared for that scrutiny. That detailed scrutiny. Here, let's even come in the water right over here and blend that a little bit more with a different tone. So we have some of those colors from the water in the rocks, and you put some of those colors from the rocks in the water, okay? And I'm just doing it in the shadows, you know. Hello, Jeannie. Check out the latest RSM, folks. And check out Jeannie's feature. Jeannie, are you happy with your with the article and everything? Did they get all your quotes and everything? Did they interview you over the phone, or did they do it via email? Here's a little bit of green. Okay, so I had green on these rocks already, okay, but it was a little bit more of that yellowy green. Okay, which I want in there, but I just want to tone it down a little bit. So here's a little bit of this like pale green here, okay? A little bit more of a mellow green. To not get rid of the other one, but just to kind of enhance a little bit more, I think. Or not enhance, but vary. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm like zoomed out here. It's interesting because I've already laid down a lot of paint pen dots on here. So going in here, this alcohol ink is changing the color of those dots in there. You know, to whatever color I color them with. You know, because the acrylic paint, even with the spray sealant over the top, is, you know, it's changing that a little bit. So I don't know, do you see this kind of this slightly different tinge of green up here as opposed to like over here? So I think that looks good. I tend to like greens too, and that in combination with that kind of violet. Yeah, well, I don't know. What was the latest scene that I did? Oh, I think it was the aspens with. Did I do purple and greens in that one? I think I did purple, or no, it was yellows and purples, right? I don't know, whatever. Or orange. Okay, so. But you know, the greens were in there in the grassy areas there, so. Yeah, that is like way better. Here, see this down here? That looks a lot better with this, okay? So my question is, do I keep adding it in, or do I kind of have a little bit different for emphasis? You know what I mean? If you do it everywhere, then it's not emphasizing anything, but I really like that right there. So I'm tempted to put it over everything, you know what I mean? But I might want it. See, maybe I should leave these ones without it, So it'll create a little bit of a difference between up there and down here, but I think that richness right here, see, that's more of that color. See, that color right there is that color right there. So this green is really influencing it a lot more than I anticipated, especially over those darker areas. Okay, so I really love this, so I'm going to add it quite a bit in here because I think it improved it greatly. So we're talking, we're talking about subtleties here. So see this right in here? Okay, so here's my thing. It's really tempting to add it over everything when something's working, but I'm going to do it down here and not in the far side of the scene, just to push depth a little bit more. But it's so much richer in there now. Or down here now. Which, that's the thing that I mostly wanted to create with these tweaks right here. All right, that's a little bit better right there. Email. I did read that about the wooden stamps. So Jeannie, now you got to make sure that you don't make them a liar. So you need to just like double up on some of the wooden stamps then, so that you have, indeed, 1,000 Stampscape stamps on wood, which you would have to have like in duplicate and triplicate, I think. Let me see. I stopped at 311, I think, as far as the code goes, of wood-mounted versions of stamps. Okay, this is a little bit more of a pale green right here, so that's not doing too much. Okay, let's add this pale one a little bit up here, though. Okay, so it's not as intense. Now, this isn't not an intense green, but you can see what it did down here. So over the top of all of those other colors, it's not reading as that pale green because we're doing it over the top of all these other colors. And again, they're transparent, so... So you have to apply it and, I don't know, like observe, you know what I mean? Just what your applications are doing, to areas as well as kind of the overall, you know what I mean? So one of those things that you do is you periodically look at your piece as a whole and see what little tweaks that you're doing here or there, you know what I mean? This one's big, so, sometimes it's kind of hard to make an assessment. I guess you can put it up and look at it from like 5 feet away or something like that, but it's a good thing to do periodically. Oh, let's add a little bit of this green to this water down here. Analogous colors. Okay, colors right next to each other on the color wheel. If you add them over one another, or really next to each other, it creates a color glow, okay? Or the illusion of it. So if I want these little pools to kind of glow a little bit, maybe a touch of like green in them. Now they already had some in green from the dye-based inks, but I'm just doing it a little bit more so, like this. I asked that, Jeannie, because back when you know, there's all these different magazines that this is going back in the 90s mostly, but whenever I was in a doing a either an in-person or a over the phone interview, like every time when the articles came out, there was a lot of times when it was like, wait a minute, I didn't say that, or you said it, but then I don't know, they combined it with like another answer, so it was like accurate. That wasn't like any big deal. This is stamping, you know what I mean? So if I say something, you know, it's not going to be, you know, there wasn't any consequence to it, but it was like, man, I just, you know, like really, really misquoted or something like that. And there was a couple of them, like specifically, one of them was the in-person interview in National Stampographic. But then I don't know, it happened a few times, and I was thinking, uh, maybe, you know, maybe you ought to ask me you know, whenever, you know, someone would approach me for an article, um, and they said, well, you know, do you want me to call or something? Well, and then this is when, you know, this is a lot of it was pre-internet too, so you know, people weren't using emails as much. But when, you know, everyone started using emails a lot more, I thought, uh, even though a lot of them wanted to, you know, kind of the phone call live interview, you know, because that was kind of part of their process. Some of it I said, hey, you know, maybe what you ought to do is, you know, you ought to email me your questions ahead of time or something like that, and I'll answer them that way, and then we can do the live interview, you know, as well, or something like that. Just, you know, just to get the you know, little facts kind of, you know what I mean, kind of anchored down. Okay, I'm going with a little bit of this gray here, just in these rocks again. If there's anything that's kind of interesting to me doing these 11 by 17s, I've noticed that this Brookside boulders right here, it's stamp 185G, that and boulders with lichen. Um, it seems like I've used those two stamps in a lot of these larger pieces. Um, that Acadia one has had a. I'm trying to think if it had Brookside boulders in there. I think it did in the cliff, but I know it had boulders with lichen in the cliff. So I don't know. There's something to, I guess, large format structuring or something like that with that stamp. I didn't, you know, it wasn't planned or anything like that, but just in kind of going over these recent either framing of the pieces or just kind of doing some tweaks on them. It's like, now that I think about it, there's this other one too that I did in hybrid inks that also has this. I don't know. I don't know if it's like a prerequisite for me that I have to use it, apparently. Because I didn't think about it at all, you know, when I did that. I don't know. It seems to be the piece that, I don't know, makes these larger scenes kind of a little bit more, I don't know, whatever, easier to approach, you know, from the compositional standpoint, maybe. Let's see, all wooden, well, not quite. Boat scene, too dark. That boat scene looked really awesome, though, in there. But yeah, I could see, yeah, like my ad in the magazine, too. It was like way darker than my submission. So you probably submitted, let me see, you submitted all originals to them, right? And they scanned it for you? Like for my ad, I just, do a digital upload. But that boat one was, that ship was really, really dramatic. It looks like those classic, you know, ship paintings. I don't know what genre that is, if they just call it, ships, kind of, but I mean, I like all of them, but that ship one was something. I mean, I've seen your other ship ones, but that was a different one, right? Okay, I'm going over this a lot with this gray here. Okay. Now, one of the things is too is there was on this scene there was so much ink in here, so that a lot of my impressions. See, I added these trees in after I had added all these um, tonal gradations on here. So this page was currently really wet. So this um, like impression of this tree, they, these two pine trees, and I guess of the spruce as well. They're all kind of like not some of these down here. They can't seem to come out darker, but maybe I had just toned in my water. You know, I did the rocks first and then the water. I'm talking about with the dye based inks in here. So these trees came out. They're more like an 80% gray at most. Okay, so I'm missing kind of some of the darkest potential elements in here. I mean, there's some, I don't know, 95% black, or gray in here. I don't know, maybe 100% black down here in some of these foreground bits, but you can see where, it's like this is like darker down here and lighter up here. Oh, you know what it is? Okay, so in this water area, I used more of the Memento inks, I think, the thicker styles of ink. And there was just less of it down on these rocks. So that really thick ink, up here in the background too. So these trees are a lot lighter than I preferred. Okay, so what I'm getting at is I was kind of tossing around the idea of just stamping a couple additional, I don't want to make it look cluttered or anything like that, but additional impressions in the StazOn ink over the top of this, just to get a little bit more of a strong black in these areas. But again, I'm not sure. Yeah, if I'll do that or not. Okay, but I think that is good as far as the. Let's get a little bit more texture in here too. No. Let's see. I need a little bit of a lighter green than I seem to have. Maybe like this one right here. This is a little bit yellowy. This one's a little bit much too bright of a green. Okay, so what I'm going to do is something I've been doing with paint pens. So down in these rocks, they're really textural, right? So I think instead of just coloring like this all the time, I'm going to add in some texture using the alcohol inks so that hopefully the little paint pen dots will kind of harmonize with that same texture. This will just be a much kind of a larger texture, maybe. Okay, it's very subtle. This is fairly light. Okay, that's what I want, though. I don't want this to stand out too much. Oh, UV glass, huh? The UV glass is always good. It always, it'll probably darken the look a little bit, but it might look even better with a little bit of a darker tinge to that scene. Okay. Okay, so this is going around in here. It's brightening up the piece from a textural standpoint, like looking at it right here, right in front of me. I can see these textures on here, which I don't want as is, okay? Because I'm doing this little colored dot like that, and it's a little bit of a different texture tactily from the rest of the piece. But again, if you spray seal it over that, that's going to kind of eradicate that change. Okay, I want it visually different, but I don't want these like little raised kind of alcohol, you can't see it right here. I don't want those raised alcohol dots to be, like catching the light, you know what I mean? So the sealant unifies that a little bit more. Okay, I want it visually like in terms of a little dot, but not that raised alcohol shininess to it, okay? Okay, so that was a little bit of that brighter green. Let's go in here with this duller, darker one, and I'll just kind of intersperse that in those same areas. It's probably a little bit too much, so I'll hit it with the lighter one and use that as a blender again over the top of these. Hey Jeannie, ask your husband if he wants your autograph, or maybe you can give him like an autographed copy of that article, like for his birthday. Or if he hasn't asked you like for an autograph, ask him why he hasn't asked for that yet. Okay, here's that same kind of pale green in here. I'm just kind of going in there and mellowing out those little textural additions in there. Which I don't know if I need to do, because I'm going to go over it with the paint pen too, and the paint pen's going to be raised. But why not? Like I said, this is like a large piece, and I don't know, I like all these little kind of details in like really subtle areas on these larger pieces. So again, it's kind of doing that thing where you're rewarding, someone for further inspection, into those details like that. So it'd be kind of cool if I had like a little really dinky little like crab stamp or something like that I can put on these rocks, huh? Future image, maybe. It'd have to be really, really small, though. It'd have, like one of those old kind of pencil eraser things where they used to have that little stamp on the top of it. They call it like a peg stamp, I think. All right. Let's see. All right. Let's see if there's any other tones here in the flesh or skin tone set. Let's see. Boy, this one is really, really light looking. And it's pink. Okay, it's a little bit less kind of beige than I want. It's a little bit warmer. That's one of the things that's good about this set here, is that there's such a subtle range here, so I can usually find something I'm going after. Let's go ahead and use this one here. It's a little bit of pink here. Hello, Cynthia. Coming around, huh? These little tiny tweaks like this. Okay, it's all these little things like this. You know what I mean? To me, the rocks just were such a prominent part of this composition that I just wanted to render them a little bit more. So when you're rendering something, you're really giving it like form and texture. A lot of it is just kind of, it's building off of what the design already has inherently, because that's what I try to do on the designs. Here's like the the example of it. So what I'm doing is, in these textural areas like that, that's where I've added in those little dots like that, like colored dots, okay? And then what I'm doing on, for the most part, down in here is like, see these darker areas of each of these forms like this? So I'm going in here and I'm going in and coloring all these darker things with, more and more layers of tones. So these shadows like that are inherently in there, but then I'm just really kind of rendering them a little bit more, so it's a little bit darker down in here with rich color instead of just black, okay? And that's what really can, enhance them from their just inherent state of, just the impression. And you can do this with, you do this with whatever media you're working with, colored pencils or, pastels, whatever you want. Or you can do it with a multimedia like I'm doing here. Okay, this one's a little bit more of this pinkish tone. It's like that flesh or skin tone, I think, color. Okay, let's see. I went a little bit too green, so I'm going to tone that back a touch. Not in all of it, but like this one right in here, so let's go in here. Now I am using the blender here. I'm going to remove a little bit of that and just spread it around. Or I don't know, maybe not remove it, but I'm going to blend it in a little bit more. So I'm coming up here into the lighter areas, like right in here, and I'm just kind of swirling that around in these lighter areas. Not on this specific design, but where it is on the on these forms right here. Tweaks upon tweaks. Okay, let's see. All right. Hopefully those are kind of glowing a little bit more now too. Let's see. Okay, I think this looks pretty good in terms of pushing depth here. So these rocks down here, to me, they're looking more rendered and deeper in color saturations, okay? And these ones in the background are not, but I do want to get a little bit more kind of detail in them, but I don't want them of the same intensity, just so it pushes depth a little bit more. Then we'll throw in some pigment ink in there as well, and we'll add another layer of that. Okay, but you know what the thing is? I got rid of a lot of that, kind of that purplish. I got rid of too much of it there. I blended in too much, okay? So I'm just going to add this down here again, like this. And just go back a little bit more again, and we'll add this over the top of that. I don't know, whatever colors I've just used in there, okay? So easy to do. Yeah. I wanted a little, I guess I wanted this a little, I liked it a little bit more distinct in here. I kind of blended it out too much. So I just add it right back in to there. And maybe, I don't know, sometimes when you go through that process like that, it gets a little bit more textural as well. Okay. So this rock right here. Let's add that little bit of tone down like that. All right, I think that is good for that area. I'm wondering what paint pen I want to use in here. Let me leave this one out. This one's a really good one. This is a Salvia Blue. Oh, well, this is my Salvia Blue Marvy pen. I wouldn't say they look alike, though. You know, this one's a little bit more reddish. A bird resting on the rocks, that'd be cool. I don't have anything really too small, though, because it would have to be in relation to the size of this pine, or these pines here, so it would have to be like really big. It'd look like a, you know, if I put it like right next to any one of these ones, it would either be saying that these trees are really small, or this bird, like a heron or something like that, would be like more like a prehistoric you know, pterodactyl or something like that. But it'd be really cool with something that was really small. You know, it'd be cool down here is in the shadows, these, you know, if I put that. But it'd be really hard to stamp anything like that. It'd have to be in black, though, because that's the only color I have in Stays On. Let me see. Or if I stamped it off first, I guess I could do that. But if we had these little fish around in here, that'd be kind of cool. Real subtle. That'd be like a really big prize fish, though. I thought the name of this one was Fisherman's Dream, but this one's my favorite, Fisherman. Fisherman's Dream was this other scene that I did. Because I entered that into, I didn't remember what video this is from, so I just type in Stampscapes Fisherman Dream, you know. If you're ever looking for anything specifically, you know, usage of some stamp or something like that, then you just type into YouTube Stampscapes, and then, like, say, for example, you know, if you're looking for a rock, how do I use this stamp? You know, you can type in Stampscapes, and then type in this code of the stamp you're looking for, and it should come up, you know, a lot of the tags that have been added to the scenes have been, you know, typed out in the description section, if not the tags. Sometimes it's not always tags, but YouTube will look it up by the description as well. So you can usually find something like that. Ships and older scene. I don't remember when I first saw your ships, Jeannie. It was when did we start seeing them? About has it been like over a year? I don't remember. Hello, Bugs. Harold wants to know if this one will be offered on eBay. Yeah, I'm prepping this one for auction. So it's like, all right, you know what I mean? I don't do these types of things. Well, I'm into details anyways. But if this thing's going to be posted for sale, it's like I want this thing like, like perfect, like down in the minutia areas. So, especially with this big. Okay, so I'm adding a little bit more blue tones in here. I just took a look at these rocks in here, and I thought, let's make them a little bit more aqua-ish. Okay. So, let's go with this, too. These 11 by 17s, well, just any of these larger pieces, I guess anything of any size, you know what I mean? It's like, I've come to realize just how effective a frame can be. Everyone always said that, hey, when I post something on eBay, or not on eBay, but Facebook or something like, hey, you should frame that, which I never did. And then I just started, throwing them in frames. It's like, oh my God, that looks like, I don't know if it looks twice as good, but I think so. Like all of them. It's just, I don't know, it frames up, first of all, the framing, you know what I mean? In terms of composition, it contains the image so much nicer. And then, in that, under that glass too. And then see, like this right here, it has this kind of uneven kind of lighting on it. You know what I mean? Because this is paper, it's going to be uneven, so it flattens it out too. So it's nice, and everything is like a uniform kind of glossiness to it. It's flat, and it's framed off. You know what I mean? It's really I don't know, kind of eye-opening, transformational. I mean, I don't know. I should have known that, but I don't know. I guess I didn't. Because a lot of times I was just doing scenes too. I wasn't formatting them into cards too. So, like just something like this scene right here, just in that, that gold, or just kind of matting. You know what I mean, like that. Man, it's like that scene looks like 100% better. And then if you threw it in like I guess if I threw that in a frame, it'd look even better. No, I say myself as a card maker though, not like a thing, something that's like framed on the wall. But I don't know, maybe these larger pieces, were the catalyst to kind of consider that. Okay, I'm adding like some of this pink in there too. Like, see that? I don't know if you can see that little pinkish tinge in there. I'm kind of working like this one dude was in my art class in high school. I was a sophomore, and I think I didn't know the guy, but it was like this advanced kind of art class where everyone's just kind of doing their own thing. It was like, what do you call that? Whatever, self-exploration or something like that, where you just kind of come up with, your projects. And it's cleared with a teacher. Usually, just people are working on long-term types of projects, and he did this type of layering with watercolors. So I think he did pen and ink, and he was just like laying down tons and tons of layers of watercolor over the top of it, and glaze and glaze and glaze, and like little objects, and it was all these little, from what I seem to recall, like fantasy creatures over this really big piece. I'm sure it was paper, but he might have had it anchored down on like a hardboard panel or something like that. But he just kind of kept glazing, certain things over and over and over with transparent watercolors in it. It was kind of an interesting way to work, but I saw him doing that every day. So when I used to see that too, I'd think sometimes I thought, I wonder when he's gonna stop glazing that figure. I don't know. He might be like working on certain areas of that piece like forever. Everyone was like doing like completely different media too in that class. So I don't know. He was the only one that I saw doing that. But it always kind of stuck with me. All right, so there's some of that pink in there. I don't know if you can see it. Like there's a little bit of a rosy kind of, you know what I mean? It's just not white, like that down here. There's a little bit of a tinge of that. So this is like a super, super, dull kind of dusty pink right here. But I think it looks pretty good on these rocks here now. Okay, so I've toned down these, super bright greens a little bit. You know what I mean? They're still in there, but I've just kind of interspersed these other, violet and pinkish tones in here like that. So we get the richness of it, but I got rid of some of the hotness of that, some of those warm greenish tinges in there. So again, they're just much more mellow and deep looking now instead of just kind of hot and in your face. Actually, let me do that right here too. All right. Let's see. What blender are you using? Oh, there's a blender pen, Candy, that just, I don't know, you can use any one of them. To me, they're all the same. But to me, it was just out of the skin tone marker set. So I've used about 3 of these. I think 3 or 4 of those in these rocks, and I just used the blender from that. I just used the blender from that set because it's brand new and I haven't used it before, so I wanted a lot of that fluid kind of on the paper. My other one from my other set, yeah, right here, I've been using this same blender for, and like I said, I hardly ever use it, so, it's probably a little bit, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like only has like 20% of the, that alcohol in there still. Yeah, I always keep, yeah, I have one of these like water bottles around here somewhere, and it says alcohol on it, just so I don't drink it. And then I have my Q-tips too, and I just dip it in there sometimes, and I just, you know what I mean? If I have large areas to kind of just blend out, then I just use like rubbing alcohol like that. But I don't know, I've been doing that for, I did that back in the day when I had this other really awesome set of alcohol pens called Studio 2, like from 30 years ago or something like that. I don't think they had blender pens for that, so I just used rubbing alcohol to kind of blend things out a little bit. I still have those pens too. They're probably all dry, but I always kept the set because it was so beautiful. But you can get a big set of every type of color or whatever, a number of colors you want. But you ordered the pens in whatever value percentage you wanted. So you can have this big range of 75 pens, and you'd say, I wanted in all of these pens in like 10% or whatever, 20% values of them. So that would be the value of them. But it also, if when you start lightening up, just the pure hue, it what you're also doing is you're also kind of varying the intensity of it. You know what I mean? Because they get duller and duller the lighter they get, like that. But to me, I always loved those really light values because I could really layer them. But yeah, I don't think they had a blender one. This is like long before Copics. Copics were probably out there, but they weren't readily known on the scene. They were probably used in, I don't know, Japanese kind of either comp drawing, I'm not sure, comprehensives, you know, like for design companies or students, or in the animation field. I think Copics come from the animation field. All right, so I'm adding in these little highlights back in there. You can see the difference between that rock and all of these around here. So I'm going a little bit more extreme with this one because it's right in the path of that light. A little bit more right here. Now these were already laid down before, but I've since gone over them with the alcohol pens. So if there were any white kind of highlights on here, they've now been colored. So I'm doing white over kind of colored highlights too. So I haven't forgotten about, you know, maybe some additional impressions. I'm not sure if I'll do those or not. Like I said, I don't want to clutter up this scene. I would just want to kind of really enhance what's already down here. But if I need to, and like some additional darker impressions on here will help, then I'll do it. But, you know, I mean, I finished this scene off before with the idea that, you know, it had the right amount of balance of all the images. So adding more might just kind of clutter it up. You know, it's busy enough, you know, so I don't want to make it busier with more contrasting imagery in there. Okay, but do you see this right here? With this lighting on this rock right here, so you get a little bit of that path of that light. In here, just that rock has remained light, okay, so I'm just going to highlight that. This one right here, this one right here, so we get a little bit of that light coming through those trees. And this was not planned, okay, you know, when I start coloring in, just sometimes I inadvertently leave some lighter areas. Now, on these ones, like I said, like on these rocks right here, just the lighter areas, I tend to leave those a little bit lighter inherently. But sometimes, you know, I'm darkening in a whole area, so... but sometimes just, you know what I mean? It just kind of happens that, okay, that looks a little bit lighter, so I'll just avoid that with my darker tones, okay? So you don't have to, like, plan out everything, because, you know, I certainly don't. I just look at it kind of after I've toned in a bunch of stuff, you know, I'm toning in with a... you know, paper towel and, you know, dye-based inks, and I'm just kind of slathering it a little bit. Then I just take a look and I say, okay, you know, this area is still a little bit light. Okay, I'll just work around it, you know, the darker I go, you know, so that I retain some of that lighter area. Or, you know, lighter area on objects, okay, usually. So here's a little bit of a rock down here. So if it's light, then I'll just illuminate it a little bit more. Just like, you know, in some of these areas where there's darker areas like that, you just darken them a little bit more, okay? So your strategies, I mean, it doesn't have to be, like, complicated or anything like that. There's darker areas of this cloud right here, so you just darken the shadows, right? And then there's lighter areas, and I'm just illuminating the highlights. Illuminate the highlights, or highlight the lit area, the lighter areas, and you darken the shadows, okay? And that's like what I'm doing on just like everything, you know, pretty much. That's the basic kind of idea of adding color for me, is just kind of enhancing, just, you know, for the most part, of what already exists. It's a little bit different. I'm toning in like whole, like aspen trees or something like that, like something like this, I'm going over with like paint pen work. But this is kind of an example of like rendering forms, you know what I mean? We're making things look a little bit more three-dimensional. Okay, let's see. Yeah, we need your autograph, Jeannie. All right, everyone, whoever wants a signed, autographed copy of RSM with Jeannie in there, be sure and put your name and address into the chat window here, and she will make sure that you get a framed, signed copy of the latest RSM, along with a like an 8x10 glossy of you, Jeannie, like that one that you sent in to them. All right, don't put. Okay, don't. No one list your addresses. I was just joking there. But that would be cool, Jeannie. If you were at some show, I'd bring my copy and have you sign it, though. Yeah, that was a great featured article, though. You know what's different about it too, Jeannie? Now that I think about it, I was just, I just realized it right now, okay? There is, like, that's a really great article. I don't know if too many other people, have provided so Jeannie's article, for those of you who don't know, all right, I can show this. Jeannie's posted it like on Facebook, but here's one of her pieces right here, okay? But there's the Stampscapes ad, really dark. But where did it go? Wait, is it in the back here? Let me see. Where'd it go? How did I miss it? Okay, right here, okay. See these pieces right here? These are nice sized pieces right here, okay? And here's some more stuff in the back here, but most people are submitting like card-sized pieces, okay? Like on that whole second page of all that autumn pieces, with where a lot of Stampscapes have been used, but yeah, people aren't like submitting like full-size 8.5 by 11s, okay? Which made that article like even more dramatic. You know what I mean? Because they're not going to take an 8.5 by 11 and squash it down into like a really small visual, because you won't be able to see any of the detail in it. So I don't know, that might be one of the first. I don't know, or one of the very few. That's got to be one of the very few. Besides cover artwork, of course. Articles that where someone's has provided primarily larger format or whole page, pieces for them. I need to go back and check that out. Look at other magazines right there. But for the most part, they're like most of the things are cards. All right, see that right there with that lighting on there? Okay, so it looks like that. Okay, I need to taper that off a little bit more here. So I'll put some like lighter dots of it. This is a rock outcropping. It wouldn't hurt to have like a couple trees like coming out of that, huh? Okay, now see this right here where it gets really dark right in here? So I don't want a ton of highlights on it, because see, this area right here is illuminated more because it's right in the light. This one's like mostly dark. So I'm just going to put like a couple little highlights out on the tip of this one right here, right? I'll try to taper it a little bit too. I'm adding some of this down into those little rocks under the water too, but see these rocks right back in here, so I'm adding some highlights on the top of them. Like that. So there's a little bit of illumination there, and see that? Just a little bit of illumination right there, where it's in that lighting right there, and then of course it's carrying down, you know, to these areas right here. But do you see that kind of path of lighting in terms of the highlights right there? See, there's a little bit like right around here because that was illuminated as well. I can see some little rocks up here in the light, you know what I mean? Just a little bit of a peekaboo. It looks like I did add some highlights on it before when I worked on it the first time, but I'll just kind of reiterate it a little bit more. I did it mostly, I can see some like green dots up there. So anyways, it's like little things like that that I think, you know, are kind of tweaking this piece and making it better. Oh, okay, so another area right here too. So there's these little ripples, right, you know, around in here. They're not really concentric. Well, I guess they are. But those right there needed a few of these highlights in there as well, you know, because like ripply water would be, there'd be a little bit of shadow on them, but also a highlight, okay? I don't know, maybe I need to see if I can add a little bit of a shadow on them too, but... And I'll just add these little dots in the shape of that, you know, those ripples down there, so... See, like, I don't know if you can see that. You can see a little bit of it. See those little ripples going around like that. Now I've added the highlight. Let me see if I can, because this is not like a, you know, I guess the alcohol pen would be okay. You can get a little detail, but the, you know, like a colored pencil is much better for that job. So if you, as long as you're not layering it too thickly with the colored pencil, I don't know. I'm not having too much problem with this. This is going on over the top of this glossy sealant, no problem here. I wouldn't be able to build it up too much, but, you know, I don't need to, but... So see this, I'm kind of adding the shadow part of this little ripple right here. Like that, but then see those little sparkly highlights in there. And actually, this colored pencil works pretty good. Let's see here. Right around on some of those little rocks, like that. Okay, I changed my mind. This colored pencil works really good. So I just toned that in right there. That was different than that up there. You know what I mean? I'll leave some of that glowing, but... So it's colored pencil like that. So if I darken it down here a little bit like that, it looks like that area is a little bit more kind of illuminated, right? Like through here. Okay. Huh. Okay, so someone asked me earlier, you know, did I spray this with the workable fixative or the sealant, you know, the acrylic, like UV or something like that. And I know it wasn't the workable fixative, okay? But I guess, I don't know, I guess I didn't slather this so much. It looks more satiny than super glossy to me. But this is really allowing me to use the colored pencil. Well, that colored pencil looks pretty good. Okay, now some of these areas, I'm adding it down, and I don't feel any texture, you know, for this colored pencil. It's like I'm going, in some of these areas, it's really thick, so it's like I feel like I'm going over glass, and it's not adhering as much. So it's not applying uniformly over this whole thing. But you see this right here? I can come back in here and see this little anchoring kind of shadow, you know, on this rock right here. That's pretty nice. And here on these rocks here too, maybe? I don't know. I wouldn't think I can add it over too much of that alcohol, but... okay, so this is the blue-violet right here. Not all these Prismacolor pencils, you know, are this soft, I guess, you know. I imagine some of those I wouldn't be able to add anything, but this is doing a really great job here. I don't know if you guys can see anything, but, you know, what this is doing here, but again, it's, you know, it's fairly subtle. Although not too subtle in some of these areas. It's going on beautifully. All right, so who asked that about the spray fixative? Okay, so I was saying if I spray this with a spray fixative, you know, I could probably get, you know, some colored pencils laid down. Okay, so this was sprayed with like a, you know, just a straight, you know, glossy acrylic. So I'm really, well, I'm not absolutely sure until you do it, but I'm pretty darn sure if I hit it with that spray fixative over the top of this, like if I wanted to add more of this colored pencil, I can do that. So, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't. I'm slowly learning. I don't know. I thought I learned, but this one I just didn't think this colored pencil would apply on here. I need to quit kind of having any preconceptions of media applications, because the more I try out, even with stuff that I'm not... I mean, this is like completely by accident, right? Because I just needed something to go in here, but... I don't know. I'm being surprised more and more of things that'll work, where I really doubted that it would. I don't know, the metallics, the metallic cardstocks have really kind of broken me out of you know, a lot of preconceived notions, starting, you know, about a couple years ago. But I don't know. I guess I have a lot to learn still, apparently. Oh yeah, that pen is like totally making that water. See that tone down there? That was this. Okay. Now I'm doing it over here. And bring it in here. Now that water, to me, that's exactly what more of the thing that I kind of wanted, I think, in here. Now let's come across in here a little bit more, like this. All right. Yeah, that's better. It's varying my water tones more than what they were. You know what I mean? I'm getting more subtlety in there and variation. From where it was. All right. Yeah, that coming in right in here a little bit more. Like, see, right up here, this is a little bit too pinkish for me, so I'm going to come in here and just introduce, not eradicate it, but I just want to introduce another kind of like tone going right across in there a little bit, just so that it's not quite so prominent. But this colored pencil is see-through, so you still get the richness from it, but again, it's just not quite so hot. And there, like that. All right. That was interesting. So if I like that color, this is one of my favorite colors right here. It's kind of a real crystalline, kind of slightly warm blue. It's almost like turquoise, so why not? Let's keep trying this in here. So I wanted these areas to glow like here, like these three little holes right here, fishing holes or whatever. Is that little tinge of blue right across there? All right. Let's see. I'm reading some of your piece, your comments here. Color one turtle and put on rock. A turtle would be cool too. I want those crabs though. When we used to go to the tide pools, I'd see crabs crawling around on the rocks all the time. But a turtle would be cool. Turtles would be where I'd see. We used to go hiking out to this beaver dam all the time, and the turtles would always be out on these logs. It was amazing what one beaver can do. They introduced these beavers, and then or one or two, I don't know, like a couple pair probably. And then what an ecosystem they made. But anyways, the turtles would be sitting on like a rock or something like that in the middle of this water. But as soon as you get like with, what I mean, like 20 yards, the turtles will always, jump into the water. So we always had to kind of admire those from a distance. Hello, Patty. Patty, this is we're about 45 minutes into this from white piece of paper. No, just doing the tweaks on this one right here. But I'm like discovering like new, I don't know, whatever, not media combinations, but I'm just surprised at kind of what can go over the spray sealant. And I wouldn't have thought, I don't know, you wouldn't think that colored pencils work over glossy coatings, right? It does. As long as they're soft enough, I guess. I mean, this is not a lightly coated scene here. I put a lot of gloss, sealant over the top of it, but I don't know. I guess, whatever. Colored pencils, or if this one's... Someone told me when I was looking up more information on colored pencils, because people started asking me questions about it, when I started posting colored pencil work, which I hadn't always done. I didn't know anything about colored pencils, and I still don't, but I got some of the basic kind of information posting to colored pencil message boards, you know what I mean, where like colored pencil enthusiasts, artists, are posting stuff. So I just said, hey, what's the difference between, the main brands? You know what I mean? Because there's a million brands out there these days. But they talked about, it seemed to me that Prismacolors just in general were more of this kind of seen as like a buttery consistency, overall. There's other Prismacolors in my set that are much harder than, you know, other colors. Okay, so it's not all of, but they did, you know, it seemed to be that the gist of, you know, there's just the overall consistency was that the Prismacolors might have been a little bit softer, so it's probably allowing me to do this. I'm not sure about the Artezas, or, you know, I've heard that there's so many other brands that are really fantastic, but I don't know the, you know, the consistency of them. All right, so this is one of my favorite colors out there, this really light blue when I use it, and I'm just adding it into some of these other areas, like around in here. Okay. Some of it, I can't see it at all, okay, because I'm going over this area right in here that's darker than it, but when I go over those white little paint pen dots that I just applied, I'm making those paint pen dots this color that I like, you know, so instead of it being a white highlight, it's just a colored highlight. Now some of these you can see myself, I'm just kind of spreading it out a little bit. Because as I go over it, sometimes it's leaving a little bit of a, like a buildup of that colored pencil wax on there, so I just kind of spread it out a touch. And this one right here, I'm scratching out a little bit. That was a little bit too much of it. I remember those. Think they had re-inkers? They might have had Yeah, I don't know if they had re-inkers or not. You're talking about the Studio 2s, and I mentioned the brand. Yeah. You remember Studio 2? Markers? I I remember, yeah. They started marketing it to the stamp industry, right? Yeah. I do recall that now. Thank you for reminding me. Jeannie, I got mine at Kelly Paper, so you have a Kelly Paper somewhere up there in Washington, I know. Or you can order it. But 11 by 17. Okay, so speaking of this large size of paper, folks, it used to be, you know, when I'd go in the store, and I have like this large, you know, kind of paper store that's open to the public, but they mostly, you know, sell to the industry. So they're talking about like the printing industry, not stamping industry, okay? But they're open to the public. It's called Kelly Paper. They sell online too. But sometimes I can't find the stuff that I'm looking for online. But, okay, so they have all kinds of different papers. What I'm getting at is, I don't know if it's the case anymore, but, because I looked at something recently, like an 8.5 by 11 size of paper. If you buy a ream of it, let's say it might have cost, like, say, for example, $25. And that's for 250 sheets, you know? So really not too bad. Everything's gone up. The pulp, you know, there's like a paper shortage or pulp shortage recently, so everything's gone up like so much. But I'm just saying this for an example. Like a ream of 8.5 by 11 would cost, like, say, $25, okay? But a ream of 11 by 17, you know, twice as large, didn't double it. It would go up to like $10. It would be like $35 or something like that. Now it's, you know, it's more, and you know, shipping might be more too, because it's, you know, it's a much larger size and heavier, you know, double the weight, like if you can't buy it like in store. But it's something to consider, you know, that if you're looking around for paper, and if it's like a, you know, if it's like a paper that you're going to be using all the time, like a cards, like a just plain cardstock, and I have it in glossy and semi-gloss sizes, you know, stuff that I can use all the time. you might look into 11 by 17 and just do a price comparison. You know what I mean? I mean, that's a lot of paper. I mean, even 8.5 by 11, 250 sheets, or 200 sheets actually of the cover stocks usually per ream. But if it's not too much more, and if you know what I mean, if you're gonna go through it, or you know what I mean, if the price per sheet goes down considerably, by just doubling the size, you might consider that too. Not that we want to waste paper, but I don't know. When people are buying a ream of even 8.5 by 11, I don't think they're like feeling too crazy about tossing something out that they don't like, or having scrap and saving like every little scrap of it. If you bought like a pack of 10 or something like that for $5, then it becomes much more of a precious type of thing. But I know the white papers, I don't know, I'd look into that type of thing. The metallics, no, because the metallic papers are so much more expensive, and you're not gonna, you're probably not gonna be using 100 sheets of it or something like that. But just basic paper, yeah. And then, like I said, you can cut down, whatever size you want from the larger pieces, right? Or, what would be really awesome is, people can pair up or something like that and buy, a larger pack, for much, cheaper, and just, I don't know, go to, some store or something like the FedEx store, and have it, chopped down or something like that, the entire ream, into two, or in a pack of 4 or something like that, and everyone gets, 200, 100, whatever, 50 pieces each or something like that at, I don't know, 50 times divided by, I don't know, I can't do math while I'm doing these things right here. But I don't know, it'd be like I don't know, like $10 for, a lot of paper. But I think that, someone sent me that link. I think it was paperonenvelopes.com or something like that. That seemed to have a lot of different types of papers on there. The biggest thing is if you have an area, some kind of location near you, and on the West Coast, like in the major cities, and not and in Arizona too. Arizona has a Kelly paper. If you go in there and just buy it, you know what I mean. Some of the biggest saving is from shipping, because paper's just, like I said, it's bulky and heavy. All right, so I'm adding down some of the more of this white paint pen work in here. All right, and I'm gonna add more in my water too, over some of these little objects in here. So I added a little bit of a shadow to a lot of these rocks. So I'm adding a little bit of a highlight to them as well. Okay, so see this right down in here. And when you add these little highlights on the water too, it looks a little sparkly and a little bit more kind of magical looking, to have that down there. Something glistening, right? Okay, let's add some highlights on some of these trees. This is where I need to be careful about not going overboard with it, because I don't want this whole thing to be vibrating with, highlights. I mostly want the attention to be in here, but just to make some of these things stand out a little bit more from the background, I think would help. So I'm putting this on some of these trees. Oh, did someone from just posting that genie, or from opening up that thing? Did it say your address? I don't know if there's too many psychopaths in stamping. Hopefully not. Although I have heard I haven't heard of a stamping convention incident before, but someone was telling me about like a scrapbooking convention somewhere where I don't know, like you know what I mean? Not nothing crazy, but you know, a little bit of that you know, the old style of not terribly old style, but you know, those um, well, I got, you know, Black Friday sales. You know what I mean? I heard about some, you know, some scrap. You know what I mean? People kind of, you know what I mean, fighting over some stuff at like a scrapbooking show. Might have been one of those things where there was like a limited amount of something being sold. You know, so when the doors open, you know, some of those companies had like this limited type of thing that they announced. So you get people kind of like running over to that booth, you know, when the show opened, and people fighting over that. I can't remember what it was or when it was, but I seem to recall hearing about that, thinking, "Wow, that's you know, I guess that's a part of our, you know, kind of industry." Or not, maybe not industry, but community. All right, so any few more highlights in there, like around in here, around on things. I don't know if I need to compensate on anything in here, like in terms of this being behind glass or something like that. I don't think so. Sometimes you need to compensate for a little bit of, you know, taking into consideration the formatting too. Okay, so for example, we're showing that, you know, that example of rubber stamp madness, and Jeannie was saying that, you know, her ship scene, her, you know, her sea scene, it printed really dark. I seem to recall that being the case with a lot of ads that I did in the past. So I think I don't remember exactly, but I wouldn't be surprised if I made certain scenes a little bit lighter or something like that. Or normally I would just be, you know, when you're submitting a advertisement, you're not submitting the originals. You're submitting a digital copy, you know, with your ad formatted with all the text and everything like that. And I think I used to change things a little bit, you know, with the idea of, you know, the printing, you know, the printing, what had maybe become a little bit of a pattern that I noticed. Maybe things printing a little bit too dark or something like that. So maybe I would drop out, you know, I wouldn't have things as dark, or I'd decrease the contrast or something like that, or maybe it was increase the contrast in the digital form of it, just to compensate a little bit for it. But I don't know, on something like this too, you know, I mean, if it's going to be up somewhere, um, and if it's going to be on like a wall somewhere or something like that, most of the times people aren't going to be it the distance that this is going to be enjoyed from, you know, is not going to be like super close up, like, you know, like I am right in here. I'm like a foot away from it right here, 15 inches away from it right here. You know what I mean? It's going to be much farther away, like from 8 feet, 10 feet away, or if someone's walking down a hall, you know what I mean? only when they're passing. You know what I mean? It's going to be more distant, so you might increase the contrasts or the textural types of things in some of these areas in here. You know what I mean? So it looks good from a distance. That's the difference between what they call like the difference between like a book cover and an interior illustration. You always treated if you're going to do like a book cover or a poster design, it's going to have different types of aesthetics than an interior spread of a book, because a book, everyone's reading it, arm's distance or something like that. But a book on the shelf or in a bookstore, it has to get someone's attention from like whatever, 15, 20 feet away or something like that on the other side of the room, or like a movie poster or something like that. So you treat things a little bit differently. So I might be doing some things a little bit differently on here too. Maybe I should add some larger highlights in here that might look a little bit stranger if you're looking at it like really close up. You know what I mean? So so when all of you start doing your posters, you know what I mean, keep that in mind. Okay, so highlights, a few little stronger highlights here. No, I don't want to do it too extreme, because I'm still thinking about it in terms of like arm's distance and card making, you know what I mean? But like I said, this is, it is a big piece right here, so maybe some slightly, kind of varied and larger highlights in here. This is the 3mm paint pen. In some of the most illuminated areas might be kind of interesting. And even if looked at close up, it'll have a little bit of variation for the, someone to notice or whatever, that maybe they wouldn't notice far away or something. I don't know. And just some little bit of a sparklier, larger highlight around the individual too in here. I think it makes it a little bit more magical looking. And I'll diffuse it a little bit with some white pigment ink, okay? Alright, so there's that, and here's kind of it's not really the equivalent to that, but, it's like that lighter blue type of thing that I kind of like adding. Okay, let's see. There have only been a few larger pieces in RSM, but none are real scenic. Okay. So that was the interior spreads, Patty? Not just the covers, right? Did someone do a 14 by 14? That's big. Now, see, that's the type of paper where I'm curious where someone must have been doing something on, like a piece of Bristol board or something like that, or illustration board for those large sizes like that. Okay, horsey girl, crabs, birds, different breeds of birds, okay, to add to trees. That's a good idea, yeah. Sheep, horses, and deer, fish. I haven't done it yet because I wanted to do something like with larger koi too, which would be perfect for the Mystic series, but I haven't drawn them yet. Because I wanted to have them drawn where it's like, you're adding them down there, but it looks like they're underwater. That's the problem with that, so those little ripply things. Unless we just handle that with like an over, stamping over the top of, an existing impression with like a water texture stamp or something like that. Maybe it's, maybe it's not the answer to underwater fish isn't in the design itself, but it's just using multiple designs. But that's a good idea there. Will you spray again? Yeah, definitely, Candy. You always want to spray again when adding these kind of textural changes in here. It's not really the acrylic so much, but I'm kind of holding this at an angle like this. And I don't know if you can see in here some of these. You see most of the things. Okay, now there right there is the colored pencil changes. Okay, but see right here where there's that little slathering right there. That's the alcohol ink. Okay, now you can see it right through here. You can see my colored pencil work in here. That will all be unified from a textural standpoint. It'll still be there, okay? And it'll still look visually different in terms of the texture, but we'll unify that kind of glare or the reflection with an additional sealant over there. But it's not only that, but I plan on going over this with, you know, some additional white pigment ink. And that's the thing that you really want to kind of lock down on here. I tend to think that if I throw this under glass too, in a frame, that's going to take care of a lot of the texturing in there. But we might as well just get it inherently, you know, unified on the original too, you know, so it'll just look better that way. Okay, so this is I love these crystalline blue types of tones in here. So I'm adding this where it's not too obvious, unless you're looking at this up close, okay, but see, like right across in here, you can't see it too much again, but again, I'm just kind of breaking up some of this this streaky, you know, applications from the original dye-based ink applications in there. That might be a little bit too much right there. Yeah, it's a little bit too much. So let's just take that out of there. One of the benefits of spray sealing your pieces, okay, when I'm adding just about any of this down here, like you can see me, you know, when I rubbed out some of that colored pencil work, I can't, like, you know, add alcohol ink and just like take it off with my finger, but you know, this is a water-based acrylic paint, so as long as it's wet, you know, you can just remove it with your finger or whatever. Before it's dry. Once it's dry, it's going to be pretty well set, but, you know, easy editing power over, you know, previously sealed pieces, you know, because you're not rubbing it off the, you're not wiping it off the, you know, paper. You're wiping it off the, you know, an acrylic sealant, you know, on there. So that's what it looks like on your finger. I don't know. I'm beginning to, you know, I've always thought about sealants, not the workable fixatives, but you know, which are meant to be worked on again. But I've always thought about these sealants as something that's, you know, the last thing you do in a process. But I'm starting to see the workable fixatives and these acrylic sealants after this one as just, you know, something along the process to layer on additional media, you know. I mean, you can do this multiple times. I mean, you can spray seal, then add some more things. You know, spray seal the things you want to get locked down, like alcohol inks or something like that. If I want to lock down those alcohol inks and then add more over the top of it without, you know, influencing the ones that have already been laid down, I don't know. It seems like the acrylic sealants are a really great way to do that, or the workable fixatives. All right, so that blue on there has added a little bit more texturing again. A little bit crazy if you look at it really close, but again, you know, kind of from a little bit more distance, you know, it just reads as just straight lighting. So I think I've done enough of the, I don't know, whatever the larger kind of tweaks on here to be, to benefit from looking at it at a distance. So, and then we have the little tweaks on here to look at things close up. Do you see that, like all these little highlights? See, there's rocks down here in a darker area, so I didn't add the highlights down there. It'd be overkill. But in the lighter areas, I put like one dot on the tops of these rocks in the shallows right there that are in this, I don't know, whatever that area that's, kind of more focused light in that area. So, boy. Okay, so I'm looking at this right here. I think I want to bring a little bit more emphasis in here. I would never do this, but this whole thing with the Prismacolors is making it available. So if I kind of darken this in a little bit more up here, then I think the focus, I'll emphasize this little area of illumination a little bit more by darkening this area a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just going to try that with the pens. This one's a Copenhagen blue. This is applying on here with no problem either. So I'm just going to kind of creep some of this little darker tinge across the water, just a touch like this. So slightly darker here, more emphasis down here. Maybe this is a little bit too light right here too. I'm a little bit reluctant to remove too much of that though, because that is like the brightest area of illumination. Okay, let me take a look here. Yeah, okay. And let's bring this blue from over here this way. Okay, I'm trying to do this. I'm doing this tapering like this, where it's darker over here, and then it's lighter like this. Out here, it's tapered off like that, okay? So I'm not just trying to darken in this whole thing in one uniform strip. It's going from dark to light in there and just kind of meeting up in that area in the middle there. This is like an example of kind of like spotlighting, okay? If you look at your pieces as like a stage, and you want to bring emphasis to something, we're going to throw it in spotlight, but hey, it's a little bit dark down there, so I'm just kind of darkening in this a little bit more, and this looks like a spotlight right in here, okay? But you can do it in a very subtle way. It doesn't have to be like this harsh, super harsh, spotlight on something, but you're just emphasizing this a little bit more. Like that, okay? So that's darkened up like that. Here's this pink going across here, but here's this little spotlit area right here with this little figure right kind of in the foreground like that. Let's try to emphasize just a slight bit more, and we'll darken in this area out here a little bit more. Okay, let me see. It's a little bit stronger. I don't want to go too much, I don't want anything like this area of darkness across there, but, it's just a little bit of a, I don't know, it's like a 10%, version of that tone, I guess. Okay, let me use some black in here, too. This time This area over here really isn't taking the black at all. I must have used a ton of sealant over here. Usually, okay, this is what I usually do when I spray seal, because I have like white pigment ink in here, like in the center areas usually, in the illuminated areas. So the areas on the perimeter tend to get sprayed with a thicker amount of it, and then less in the center section where I have those more subtle applications of, the white pigment ink. Because if you spray seal the white pigment ink too much, it just like disappears like it was, pastels or something like that, like a light colored pastels. If you ever spray seal it too heavily, it's like you lose all of your highlights in there, your lighter tones on top of darker ones. They become transparent. So I guess that's why like these colored pencils are probably working in this zone quite a lot, because that's where I applied a lot more of the, or a lot less of the spray sealant in here, or, and applied a lot more of the white. Okay. "11 by 17 comes in reams." It should be every type of cardstock comes in reams. I don't know if 12 by 18, I don't think in the paper industry. That's not a standard one, right, Ginger? 12 by 18. I know that's common for printing paper, for those full, whatever they call it, full bleeds. But I think in the paper industry, I don't remember seeing anything over 11 by 17 in reams. But all of the different types of papers that I saw, maybe not the pastel types of colors and stuff like that, but all of the basic cardstocks that I ever got, at Kelly Paper at least, came in 11 by 17 and then if you wanted to order larger ones than that, I had to special order, but any of the stuff that they had on the shelves, they'd always have the 8.5 by 11, then the 11 by 17 right underneath it. Linda, you didn't get your notice downstairs. Just tweaking this one. Okay, so Linda, if you just joined it, I don't know when you just posted that thing, but I spray sealed this thing, okay? And I'm sure it wasn't with a workable fixative, but the colored pencils worked over the glossy spray. But I think it's because, again, I didn't spray too heavily in that center area, so it was probably more of just a dusting of it, maybe. I guess, but I don't know. I'm learning like new things about this. I don't know, whatever, media compatibility all the time, where stuff that I would have assumed, was not necessarily so. But it's always in the the positive. Realm, things are more compatible, and we're able to do more things on things that I thought. The only thing that didn't work out, okay, I was working on printable vinyl, and when I did my initial tests on printable vinyl, this is stays on it, or one of these is stays on, my test print thing, but it worked just fine. But then, I don't know, I tried doing it again. I don't know, maybe, I don't think that outside temperature is going to affect it, but it just did not work. And unfortunately, we were doing it in the workshop, like an online workshop. So if the stays on was like really super juicy, it applied okay, you know what I mean? But it was really grabbing the material. Okay, but everything else is working, to me, better than, or there's more compatibility with different things than I ever would have thought when it comes to like colored pencils. Alcohol inks, nothing new with that. because alcohol inks, you can pretty much use it on anything. You know, you practically write on glass. Oh, with the alcohol inks, it was the you know, using the spray sealant in between layers. That was recent. But colored pencils, and there was something else too. I think it was maybe. Oh, it was like alcohol. I mean, watercolor pencils over that funky white holographic matte patterning that worked. It was on this Miri lava one, but the white matte one. This one's like a blue gloss. But that white matte was that was shocking in terms of you know, something that whatever revelation, you know, in terms of any type of metallic cardstock paper and being able to use you know, watercolor pencils of all thing on top of it. But it was because of that matte coating that they had on there. So I hadn't run across a matte holographic cardstock before. So I don't know. It was interesting to learn. Okay, so some of this white pigment ink here. And you notice I had just re-inked it. My white pad was like super, super dry. Okay. Okay, now on this one here, I'm going to over apply some of this white pigment ink. I have a feeling that since this has already been sealed off, you know, when we apply this white pigment ink into our scenes just on bare paper or over the top of whatever media we apply, it really dries a lot more see-through, and I think it's kind of, I don't know, the moisture might be absorbing into the paper or something like that. But these are sealed off already. So I don't know. I don't know if this is going to dry as see-through as it does on just a blank, you know, bare piece of paper. Okay. So, okay, but you know, I am going to spray seal this though. With a decent amount, so I'm going to do a little bit more like overkill in terms of the application of this, because a lot of it is going to disappear with the spray seal, you know, the spray sealant application. All right. Now that being said, when you spray seal something and it's like, oh my God, I lost all my white, you know, you can just apply it again over the top of it and build it up a little bit more, and then spray seal it again, but maybe spray seal a little bit, you know, of a lighter coating because you would already spray sealed it, you know, so you don't really need to lock down everything else, but you might want to be locking down, you know, just that little bit extra of you know, white pigment ink that you've already applied. It might even look better too. You might even be able to get more of a kind of a layered, you know, real kind of a specific kind of application of your white applied. And what I mean by that is sometimes it's hard to know how much to apply on here because, you know, when it dries, like I said, it dries darker than when it was, you know, kind of still wet or, you know, freshly applied. So sometimes, you know, it's kind of hard to know how much to apply. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm not even sure sometimes. Sometimes maybe it's what we're applying it over the top of too, like I said. Maybe the more porous the paper it is or something, or the media, it just kind of, I don't know, whatever, merges with it or something like that. The water in this case, or if you're using an oil-based one too, you know, the same thing applies. I use the Brilliance these days. It's faster drying, and I think it's a little bit more opaque than the other ones. But you can. But I used, you know, like Hero Hues and the Color Box white for years and years and years. To me, the brilliance dried too fast, but I don't know, I just got used to it, and I'm using it all the time now for my usage. I think it dries faster because it's designed to do that. So I just get a much faster application of what I'm kind of going after. But both of them kind of dried, like I said, darker and more see-through than what they looked like when they were freshly applied. Okay, so I'm adding that through here. There's that glare on there, but you see it like that. Let's put some over in those distant trees too. I'm not doing it over all of them. I'm kind of tapping it right here, here, here. This isn't giving me like a really exact location tap, but I'll just kind of vary it slightly. Okay. So that looks like that. Okay. What I did there was, let me see if I could show you right here. I'm running out of like test areas on here, but what that looked like was, let me show you like right here. I did like this, and then it looked like that, and one of them's a little bit larger like that. Okay, so it just varied it a little bit, so it's like here, here, and here. Maybe the center one's a little bit bigger. So just move that one like right in the middle, from these two. So that's what that application looked like right there over the top of those trees. So you can see some of the trees are a little bit darker, and some of them are a little bit lighter. So that varies it a little bit more. Instead of just doing it over the whole thing kind of uniformly, I think it looks a little bit better varied. Now see this area right in here? I think that looked a little bit lighter. So it's drying. So it's, I put a big glob there. Here, let me get this a little bit narrower. Like that. It's a little bit too much, but again, it's drying kind of really quite a bit darker, so see-through. Drying transparent, okay? Not transparent, it's still translucent, but it's moving towards transparency when it dries. Same thing right that over there. Let's make that a little bit lighter. I got a little bit of that lightness down there on the horizon where I didn't come down here with those colors, so let me put a little bit in there too. It was just kind of, somewhat of an accident, putting, leaving that in there. I mean, it was not an accident like I should have put color down there, but if I didn't, that gives me an opportunity for a little bit of this lighting kind of coming through here because it's a light area of the scene. So for me, it just looks a little bit, kind of nicer to have a little bit of that added texture like right in there. Same thing with like maybe like right back in there like that. I'm not going to add too much because it's still kind of dark, but it's just a little bit lighter than the other areas. So see that right there? That little bit of a glow going in front of that tree like that. So that's what that looks like right there. Okay. Okay, I'm softening up that little bit of a colored pencil work that I added across there too. So, all right, so is there any opportunities? This got pretty dark in here, so I don't know if I can add too much of this in here. It gets a little bit too kind of monotonous with that real detailed type of shimmer in here, so I think it would be good to just diffuse it a little bit here and there on here. Again, I don't want to make it look like out of focus in here, though. So I'm just going to add a little bit here and there. It just, I don't know, it just softens up some of these areas just a touch. I guess it's illuminated it as well. But it did need to get mellowed out a little bit. Okay. So see, this is, again, this is where the textural, let me see if I can show you that. I don't know if you can see, well, you can kind of see it, that white in there. It looks like it's blending in pretty well, but it is a little bit different. This looks flat on here, okay? And everything else is kind of shiny. So it's not distracting in terms of a textural kind of thing, but you can see like down here, the colored pencils are kind of distracting. But again, if it's underneath glass or something like that, you know, it's not going to have that. Let's see if we can get a little bit of this kind of misty glow. It kind of already looks like that, so let's add a little of this in here. Maybe having like a blue pigment ink would be better for this right in here, because there's no white, but let's try to add a real thin layer of it in there. It's like this little kind of mist coming off of that little pool back in there. That's like way too much. Okay, like that. You can really see that shimmer like that. Okay, that's a little bit like that. Okay. And let's see, right around. Ooh, that was way too much. I re-inked too much here. Okay, let me tap some of this off. All right, like right around in here. Okay, let's add some down here. I don't, like I said, I don't want to get too detailed with this in these areas, because the main emphasis should be right in here. But texturally, that does look pretty good throughout these little tiny areas, like right in here. Again, that's going to really merge because I just put like a very thin layer and it stands out a little bit more now, but when you spray seal it, you're going to be losing like half of it, half of the look. That's why this area up here is kind of slathered on quite a bit more. So, and I am going to hit this with a decent amount of sealant. So I think that is about it. I really like rendering this rock apparently because I've added a gazillion layers of media over it right in here. Let me see, let me go a little bit more of this black colored pencil. Oh, yeah. So there was that potential with the like a stays on application of media. Okay, so see, I can see my little reeds down here. See how dull they are? That's something that I can do in here. Okay, let me do that at minimum. Okay, I'm going to add in some stays on impressions over the top of them because they're probably going to look darker and a little bit shinier. And sometimes the stays on looks a little bit raised too, which I like for foreground imagery. And I don't know, it doesn't. It's raised because it's a little bit of a textural change. A lot of times, I don't know if it's going to be so much of a textural change on this piece because it's you know, so heavily spray sealed, but we'll see. This is like night and day here, in terms of the impressions. Okay, I used so much ink over here that I couldn't even see those reeds down there, you know, practically over the top of them. But see that those are the stays on ones. So here again, do you see these ones right down in here? I mean, yeah, I don't know if you can even see it. Okay, that's really out of focus, but you can kind of see those reeds right in there. It's really dark and reflective, but let's add that degree of blackness right in there. Yeah, you can see the reeds down there. See those right there? And that's the winter brush right there, but let's add this down there. This is making it look so much better. In that small area at least. This paper with the sealant is so smooth and sealed off. You got to be careful that you don't. When I laid this down over there, it's almost like, oh, I can feel like it's, you know, it can get a little bit wiggly. It's so thickly sealed off, you know, with that gloss spray. I can see it now too. I can see where I've added the reeds here before, but they just got buried in so much media and almost invisible. So see this down here? Oh my God, it sounds like it, like way more with that black down there. Where it looked kind of dark before, right? But this is like, now we have this contrast in here that makes those rocks look, at least in terms of the impressions in there, much, much lighter. But you can see those reeds in there. We couldn't even see it. I could barely see it before, like right in front of my face, but look at those reeds down there. So, again, I mean, you know, it's dark against dark, so it's not like it's like, oh my God, there, you know, I mean, like such a big difference. But then when you look at it closely, you know, they're so much richer. You can even, like, one of the things that I don't do too often, but it always occurs to me when I'm doing these pieces like this, is that if this was like a card and I wanted something a little bit more tactile, I just got white paint all over right here. If I wanted something more tactile, and if you're going to do your foreground types of things in black, then doing them, embossing them is kind of fun because they're actually raised images, and taking off some of that Brilliance white that I had on my fingertip or something like that. But Brilliance, again, it's water-based, so I just put a little water here and it rubbed right off, you know. Which you can do, again, because this has been spray sealed like that. But yeah, having kind of those embossed foreground images is kind of fun. You know, they're supposed to be very close to you in terms of the foreground anyways, and having them darker and raised, you know, it just adds that extra little dimension. So I don't know, I need to get back into doing those embossed things like that, those little types of touches like that. So anyway, so those are the little tweaks in here. It's just that this is an 11 by 17, so there was like a lot of them, but it was, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 more layers of alcohol inks, especially in the rocks. I really love like really rendered rocks for some reason. I guess they're like, in our scenes, they're really definitive three-dimensional forms, so we've tweaked our lighting and our passage of lighting a lot more. And like even in these little areas right in here, I've added shadows to all of those little rocks, just in a light, you know, shade, and I've highlighted them with a little dot. If you look a little close up, I can't zoom in too far because it starts going out of focus, but let's see that like that. So more pigment ink, colored pencils of all thing. I didn't think that would work, but it did. And that helped like a huge amount. I think the, I don't know, well, the alcohol inks made a big difference, but those colored pencils made a big difference too, in a very targeted areas. So I really like that. Let's see. Look at your work from across the room before you call it done. That's a good idea, Bonnie. One of the things is too, you know, when I'm working on my pieces, I turn them upside down too a lot, just because it's an easier access point to color things and to apply media. But I think it gets you kind of looking at the piece in a different way. You know, it's like that drawing on the right side of the brain type of thing, or you use a different hemisphere, where you turn something upside down into our brain. It's like you stop looking at something in terms of like specific objects, like a rock or something like that, and you look things like areas and spaces. Like for me, like that lighting in here, like coming across here with that little subtle lighting like this from two directions like this, I carried this out a little bit more. Just that lighter shade like that, and that kind of isolated this area from just being one big illuminated piece. I mean, I had these streaks of red going across there like that, or pink, you know, to kind of reiterate what's going on in the sky, but it brought more attention to that little fisherman too, I think. So, anyways, huge textural thing, not as crazy as like those aspen pieces or something like that, but probably the most shading that I've done in a scene before, over like, you know, just because there's so many rocks in here and those types of forms in there. So yeah. Okay, so Patty says, okay, so Dana Smith had 3 large pieces in there too. Awesome. But those larger pieces are really effective in those publications. It's really nice seeing them. You know, besides the cover pieces, of course, where we usually see them all. So, rewatch that video. Oh, you're gonna rewatch this video, Linda? This one's, I don't know, in terms of this one, okay, so on all these large pieces, I think the thing that I'm doing on a lot of them is I do grayscale first, just because it's so much faster getting those base layer colors down. I don't think I did like a ton of base layer coloring with colors. Okay, I just give it kind of a general grayscale lighting scheme and coloring scheme, I guess you can say. And then I come in with my colors after the top of it, and kind of I'm doing more tinting, not so much in the sky, which if I come into there with too much gray, you can't get those colors in there. Like pink, you know, over the top of gray is not going to look like that type of coloring in there, but definitely down on the rocks, you know, so it's a good way to do that. So I was just teaching, Annie's in here sometimes. I don't think Annie joined in, or I didn't see her if she did, but I was telling her about grayscale base layer lighting for the most part, and that's a good way to approach these large scenes. In that, like Jeannie was talking about that, you know, the Acadia piece, or I don't know, or one of those other pieces. And that's the way I did that one too. So, yeah, just go, you know, if you're doing a large piece and you want to make it faster, okay, just go in with like a, I don't know, whatever gray you have, like a London fog, you know, Memento, or, you know, Marvy has gray. The Mementos are a little bit thicker and slipperier though, so they spread around easier. So I find that the Memento London fog, especially in re-inker form, you know, really does the trick. You know, you put that on to a paper towel or sponge or something like that, and you can just come and do these big, huge kind of slatherings of you know, slathered kind of applications of ink down. And then remember, you know, you're not just coloring everything in, you know, remember to, you know, kind of define your lighting scheme. So on here, it's really simple, okay? My lighting scheme is, we have these 3 areas of, you know, basically the scene is 3 areas. We have sky, water, and then this whole rocky area, okay? Now the rocky area, I mean, it does get broken up, but, you know, where there's light here, you know what I mean? But for the most part, it's kind of light in here. And then I've gone back in and I've, you know, just darkened in some of these shadows right here, and I've broken it up. But it's the same thing that's going on in all of these pieces that I'm doing, okay? So the sky right in here, okay? It's generally darker on the edge and lighter in the middle. But then I just break it up. It's too much of the same thing. So I come in with a streak here and a streak down here. So it's a little bit lighter, darker, lighter, darker, lighter like that, okay? This area in here is light, but I just break it up. I just go dark, light, dark, light, dark. Or down here, okay? Well, this is like dark here, and this is darker here too. But you just, these areas of lighting, you just break them up. So this area in here, because it's rocks, and we have these shadows running across these areas in here, I'm just darkening in some of these areas. And then some of it, I don't want to make it like too, monotonous, where it's, shaded in the same exact areas. So I just darken in these areas like this, but it's mostly, the same type of thing where it's dark, or light, dark, light, dark. And it's dark down here, and if you go across it like this, lighter, and even with water, it's a little bit darker and lighter in here, but it's, for the most part, it's like dark, light, dark, light, dark like that. So it's like checkerboarding, like I said, not exactly squares every time. Sometimes there are longer areas in there, but you just kind of designate little areas of light and dark, and then you just break them up, okay? With, with your shading like that, and just start off with lighter tones like that. So that's what you're doing kind of with, your first applications with a very light tone, and that's Memento or gray. Another one would be good is just a warm tone too. You could have done an antique linen distress ink or something like that, or if this is largely blue tones in here, the tumbled glass would have been a pretty good one to go with as well. It doesn't have to be grayscale every time, and just in terms of your base layers, but it is an easy way to work, when you're just kind of thinking monochromatically, and then you just kind of move into your colors afterwards. Have just some kind of general color scheme, and then you add your specifics elsewhere, or on top of that, I should say. All right, but anyway, that's usually cut down from parent stock. Oh yeah, right. What are those parent stock things? The parent stocks are, what are they? I forgot. We learned that in kind of our art classes. I forgot what it was. Those master sheets. Ginger, what was those master sheets were like, they're like bigger than 40 by 60. I don't know, they were gigantic, right? For like 4-color prints, presses, 4 or 5-color presses. Oh, the RSM album of scenic art. Found a few over 40 years of stamping magazines. Yeah, the album of scenic art. I did a video on those ones a while back. There were 2 of them, right? I'm looking up on my shelves. I had those somewhere. Where are they? They were the same size as those other RSMs, weren't they? I don't know. People look into the what Harold Linda's talking about here, the RSM album of scenic art, or if you want to just, if you can't find those, look up the Rubber Stamp Madness album of scenic art. Just type it into YouTube here, but some really great, fantastic scenic art in there. And in terms of scenic stamping, some forms of stamping, if you look back at those earlier magazines 20 years ago or something like that, there's different types of trends, so something can look kind of dated, but I don't find the scenic art to be, dated at all. When I look back at it, I haven't looked back at, I did that video of them a few years ago, but I don't know, everyone has their kind of own techniques and things like that. And like this isn't like a huge difference from me, from my stamping that I was doing like 20 years ago. I've added in like little colored pencils and the acrylic paint pens, but it's largely, similar. Now, I'm doing other things too, on the metallic papers and things like that, now. But as far as like a lot of the techniques, it's the same thing that's been going on. And I find and things like colored pencil work on scenes to be really timeless because it's like a classic, medium that people have always done. Okay, so Candy, you're using 8.5 by 14. Okay, you're using legal size paper, huh? I haven't heard people buying too much of that legal size paper. Candy, you're working. That's on. That's all the pieces that you're doing is on the same type of cardstock then. And what type of paper is that? Is that just cardstock? Just plain matte, or is that a coated variety? They're cut before they get to us. Yeah, definitely. Ginger, were you the one that worked in the printing industry, the paper industry? Someone was telling me that. I thought that was really cool. It was probably you, Ginger, right? I miss the printing industry. Yeah, I know it's still out there, but you don't have kind of an independent printer like in every city or like small print shops either, you know, where you used to be able to walk in there and get your business cards made or something like that. I know I don't use I didn't use too many of the small print shops, but I did early on for my catalogs and everything like that. There were so many printers around. Um, yeah. Or you work at a print shop right now. Where, right, currently, Ginger? Did you, I don't know, maybe, did you tell me that? I don't remember someone saying they work at a print shop now. Oh. Uh, if anyone's looking for paper, call Ginger, or contact Ginger then, maybe if you can't find it, maybe, I don't know, maybe Ginger can hook you up. Okay, so here's my question for Ginger. Okay, I don't know this either, but how many different types of, let's say, glossy cardstock? How many brands of glossy cardstock are there these days? I'm talking about like easy accessible. You know what I mean? Do you think there are these days? And how many, in relation to like say, I don't know, like 15 years ago, maybe? The paper that I used to love was the original Chrome Coat. But do you remember King James, that brand? That to me was my favorite. I think that was everyone's favorite, in the card making community. Everyone was using Chrome Coat that I can remember. And then it became King James, became widely kind of, I don't know, the main thing. I liked it in terms of the compatibility with the different types of inks out there. Just in terms of the, I don't know, maybe it was of the absorbency type of thing. I'm not quite sure what it was. It didn't seem to quite absorb things quite as much as other brands. Like some of the thicker viscosity inks dried like, really, really dull on certain brands of glossy cardstock. So I don't know what it was. Is it the coating on there or what? We have a large press and coat our finished product. The best is CS1. Yeah. So the C1S, that's the coated, that's the single sided coating, but is there a brand that you work with mostly, or do you guys do a lot of glossy printing too? I don't know. I'm kind of curious about these things. So we got Ginger in the house here, so maybe we can find some of those little details, about some of these different stocks. The glossy card stocks, to me, when I've tested them out, they're like vastly different from one another. Um, in terms of how they're taking, like crafters inks, you know what I mean? Printer inks, maybe not so much, but the crafters inks, I found that the glossies are really different. But the semi glosses to me are, I don't know, I don't find them too different from one another. I'm starting to wonder if this is a glossy or if it's the semi-gloss that I did this. And I'll have to watch the original scene. I got to watch my original video because I can't tell now because I've coated this with the acrylic sealant, so I have no idea. Oh, one of the things I want to start getting into too, I got in touch with Ampersand Art today because I know the owner over there, and I might want to do, I didn't tell them, but they mentioned maybe doing some kind of collaborative thing. But I want to do some cradled panels of larger scenes, like, you know, this type of thing. They have a myriad of different sizes of like that clayboard type of thing that I just did. It comes in all kinds of sizes. And they also have these raised cradled panels where that piece is, you know, on top of a board, you know, so it's raised and it's like ready. It could be hung and, you know, directly onto the wall because it's on that, you know, raised wooden panel that sticks out about, I don't know, it's like 1.5 inches or 2 inches or something like that from the surface. So I think something like that would be cool for something like this, you know, because these pieces, when you just do it like this, it gets really ripply. Now this one right here, I mounted on another piece of 11 by 17, so it's a little bit stiffer, but it's still real kind of, you know, if you don't have this framed, it's kind of, you know, uneven and a little bit, you know what I mean? It's not a super flat surface, but those cradled panels should be fun. I don't know, getting off subject here, but okay, so yes, but we start with, oh, okay, you code it afterwards, yeah, right. You shuffle data for the mail department. Okay. Go ask them about that, though, Ginger. We want to know. Yeah, someone there would kind of know that type of stuff, probably. But, yeah, I'm just kind of curious about the different brands out there. It seems like there's less brands available. So I was wondering if someone with some inside info, you know, if you could probably guess at what types of papers are in those packs that are sold in, like, you know, a 10-pack sheet, you know, 10-pack, you know, of paper or something like that. These days, I'm just telling people it's probably chrome coat, you know, but I'm not quite sure. Anyways, folks, there's the finished piece. I'm taking a look here and making sure that I got everything on here. I like how it came out, and I largely got, or I did get what I was going for in terms of finishing these, largely a lot of the objects off a little bit more. I'm just adding a little bit more of this bluish tinge right here in the shadows. I don't know if the alcohol inks looks like they're absorbing into the surface a little bit too. I don't know, maybe it's because I have that clear coat on there or something like that, but I don't know. It's not necessarily bad if it kind of dries a little bit lighter than what it looks like going in. You know, when you added it in there, because it blends in with the background a little bit more. And you can always add more and build it up, but I don't know. I think I wanted to add in a lot more of that, those contrasts and shadows into a lot of the different forms here, so I think we've achieved that. Look at those reeds down there. Like, those are completely different looking. Okay, now just remember, if you ever go over something like, I can't color over my StazOn ink with alcohol because it's going to put that StazOn solvent ink back into solution. So if you want to go over that with alcohol, if I wanted, you know, to tone in some of those things in the background, you have to spray seal it first and lock down that solvent ink impression before going over it with the alcohol ink again. So you could do that. And then if you go over it with the alcohol and you got all these different types of kind of textural, kind of distracting textural, you know, contrasts in there, then just spray seal that again. So what you get is this kind of floating kind of layer of media in between your spray coats, okay? So just remember those types of little things like that, you know. The spray sealant is not going to do anything to the water-based media at all, but it will, you know, can potentially influence the solvent types of things. So right down here, what I'm going to do when I spray seal it, I'll let this dry down where I probably don't even need to worry about it at all. But if I were to go outside and spray seal this right away, where, you know, I mean, that's probably long enough for it probably to dry, but you never know. You're doing it in the wintertime, it's colder or something like that, and things are drying a little bit slower. If you just stamp that out, don't go outside and give a really super thick slathering of spray sealant over the top of that where it's sitting on there and it's taking, you know, a couple minutes for it to dry, because it could make those impressions run. So what I do is I just give it a quick spray where that sealant is down there. Then I do it again, usually. And when you let it dry, we're talking about like 10 seconds or something like that, not a long time. And then get it locked down. And then you can give it a, you know, a thicker spray if you want to over the top of that without affecting any of the impression quality of those solvent ink impressions. So just remember that. Let's see. How did you adhere the two pieces together? Oh, so Ginger, I used the 3M Super 77 spray adhesive. So, I mean, you can use any type of spray adhesive that you want. You know, some of the spray adhesives are the art adhesives, and they're not permanent. So I just used a permanent one. And I don't know. I don't know if I trimmed off the edge or if I happened to get it perfect on there. I don't think I can, you know, over this like super long piece, but I can tell it's like super thick, so I know I did it. But I've been doing that like on most of my larger pieces. I've been adhering them to a larger piece. That goes for my 8.5 by 11s too. I'm guessing I must have adhered them together, and I bet you I went in here with the paper trim and I just trimmed off the edges to make it flush on there. So, but that was before I was thinking about framing it too. But I like it kind of heavier anyways. It's like, you know, this is like a really thick piece, so it's already thick, of course. You know, I don't know. It's like 100 pound or something like that. So it's like a 200 pound thickness on here. So, yeah. Anyway, folks, thanks so much for joining in. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I was just going to do this off live, but I thought, you know, I know what I'm doing on here, or what I'm going after. So I didn't need to concentrate too much. Thanks for joining in, everyone. Thanks for keeping me company during the finishing of this piece. I'll spray seal it, slap it in frame, and I'm kind of curious to see what it's going to look like. I'm going to lock down my my SIG in here. I usually use the I'm going to go with a gray here, because this is a really dark area right here. I'm going to do it a little bit higher because I think on that framing that I have, it has that little bit of a optional matte that, you know, that they have on that frame. So I didn't do this one in 23, but we certainly finished it in 23 here, so you know, a couple years in the making maybe. All right, so anyways, there it is, and you know, kind of a hidden signature right there. Thanks, Bonnie. Thanks for joining in. All right. All right, have a great rest of evening, everyone, or whatever time of day it is for you. If you're in Australia, it's a little bit earlier.